Have you ever done something good for someone and then kind of stopped and wondered, where does that goodness actually go? Well, today we're going to dive into a really profound idea from Mahayana Buddhism that takes that simple act of doing good and turns it into something, well, something absolutely boundless.
It all really kicks off with a question that I think we've all asked ourselves in one way or another. It gets right to the heart of why we even try to be good people in the first place.
I mean, really think about it for a second. When you help someone out, or just show a little kindness, or do any kind of generous act, what happens to that positive energy? Does it just poof, disappear into thin air? Or could you maybe aim it?
Well, the answer brings us to this amazing concept called Fi Xiang, which translates to the dedication of merit. The idea here is that goodness isn't just a random accident, it's a real energy, a kind of merit that you can consciously direct, almost like an archer taking careful aim with an arrow.
Okay, so if we can aim this merit, where do we point it? Where does it go? The source text we're looking at lays out two really fundamental paths for this dedication. And this sets up a fascinating choice, right? On one hand, you can direct your good deeds inward, using that energy to cultivate your own wisdom and spiritual growth. And on the other hand, you can direct it outward for the benefit of every single living being out there. So when you dedicate merit for self-development, it's all about refinement. The text gives examples of vows like these: aiming for perfection in your actions and thoughts, tapping into that deep, unshakable wisdom, and getting a crystal clear understanding of how things really are. It's all about working on yourself. But then there's the second path, and this one is just unbelievably expansive. Here, the dedication goes totally universal. You're making vows for absolutely everyone, that they'll be free from suffering, that they'll find wisdom, that they'll discover a lasting peace. This is just a radical, all-encompassing form of compassion. But hold on, because the text doesn't stop there. It actually introduces a third level, an even more profound way of dedicating merit that goes way beyond the simple idea of giving something away. And this is where we get to the real heart of it. The highest form is called dedication in accordance with true thusness. Now, I know it sounds pretty complex, but stick with me because this idea is a total game changer. So what on earth is true thusness? Okay, so Zhen Ru, or truth thusness, is basically reality in its most raw, pure form. Think of it as the fundamental fabric of everything that exists. Before we stick labels on it, before we judge it, before our minds chop it up into little pieces. It just is. To help us wrap our minds around this pretty abstract idea, the text gives us some really beautiful analogies. It compares the nature of this ultimate form of dedication to the nature of reality itself. Now, this completely reframes the whole idea of dedication, doesn't it? It's not a single little act you send from you to someone else anymore. Instead, it becomes boundless, all-encompassing. It's just everywhere, all at once, just like reality itself. And check this out, it also connects this ultimate form of giving with clarity. So it's not some blind act of charity. It's an act that comes from a place of deep wisdom and insight, one that kind of illuminates everything it touches. So what this means is that this kind of dedication is incredibly stable. It doesn't depend on your mood or what's happening around you. It's as constant and as unshakable as the fundamental nature of existence itself. Nothing can mess with it. So if someone actually practices dedication in this incredibly profound way, what happens? What's the end result? What's the outcome? Well, the reward, if you can call it that, is probably not what you'd expect. You don't really get anything back. Instead, what happens is this radical shift in your whole perspective, a deep realization that the lines we draw between me and you, they're basically an illusion. The text actually breaks this down into a kind of journey of expanding awareness. First, you start to see your fundamental equality with every other living thing. Then, that expands to see inequality in all things that exist. And finally, you realize inequality with the ultimate potential for wisdom itself, which is what the Buddhas represent. So let's pull all these threads together. What is the big takeaway from this whole concept of limitless giving? This is the huge transformative leap. The act of giving stops being a transaction between a separate me who's giving and a you who's receiving. The ego just drops out of the picture. It's simply goodness, flowing and aligning itself with the boundless, interconnected nature of true thusness, of reality itself. And that leaves us with a final thought to chew on.
What if the most powerful, the most profound act of giving wasn't an action at all, but was actually a way of seeing, a perspective where that separation between you and me and the goodness we share just dissolves? How would that change the way we live our lives?